You're listening to the Cyberwire Network, powered by N2K.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to N2K Cyberwire's Hacking Humans podcast, where each week we look behind the social engineering scams, phishing schemes, and criminal exploits that are making headlines and taking a heavy toll on organizations around the world. I'm Maria Varmazis, still doing a lousy Dave Bittner impression as he is still out on vacation, but he will be back. With me right now is the one and only Joe Carrigan. Hi, Joe.
Hi, Maria. There's actually three of us.
There are actually three of us today, although the third person is...
I mean three Joe Carrigans.
Wait.
But you said one and only. There's three of us. My dad and my son.
Oh my goodness. So you're the second and you have Joe the third in your family?
I'm actually the third. My son is the fourth.
Okay, you are actually the second person I know who has, I know a Rob the fourth and the third. Like, you're not the only person I know doing that. That's pretty cool. That's really cool. Okay, well, you are my one and only Joe Carrigan, Joe.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
I will accept that.
And we do actually have a third person joining us today, although she is not with us right at the moment, but she'll be jumping in for our catch of the day, and it's our own N2K's Maayan Plout. She is a good friend of mine, and she'll be joining us later on to talk about a really interesting story. And actually, we've got a whole bunch of interesting stories to share with you this week. We will be right back after this message from our show sponsor.
And now, a few thoughts from our sponsors at ThreatLocker. The tactics used by cyber criminals are becoming more and more advanced every day. The shift from a default allow approach to a default deny is more critical than ever. This is where ThreatLocker comes in. Stay tuned for how ThreatLocker allow listing and ring fencing has your back.
Okay, welcome back. We do have some follow-up from Hacking Chickens, aka
Hacking Chickens.
That is the name of our show. The other suggested title for last week's episode is actually "What the Cluck." I don't think we went, but you were the subject of much love and adoration, at least for everyone who was listening to the episode internally as it was being edited. So well done, Joe.
Okay.
We got some.
I'm glad to hear that.
We got some listener feedback from that episode. Big surprise. I'll read some excerpts from it. This comes from Joe, aka Crowchild Bob, and he said, "I liked Maria's use of specialized words such as obfuscation." I can't even say it correctly now. Obfuscation techniques and legidish. What a good couple of words. I think I'll add them to my lexicon. In the same vein as automagically, I'm glad you like my garbled pronunciation of things. I will just blame my lack of coffee.
Yep.
Robert. Thirdly, chickens. Joe, really? Do you know why eggs have gone expensive in the U.S.? Huge factory egg farms have been slammed by bird flu. Are you going to be keeping an eye on your backyard birds? For the same, stay healthy, my friend. Joe, what is your answer?
I have answers for this. Yes, that is correct. Bird flu does spread through a flock very quickly. So it will devastate. Actually, what happens is once you get a single bird in the flock with bird flu, they have to euthanize the entire flock because the assumption is that everybody has it and they're trying to contain the spread of the bird flu. So that's what happens. And I don't know if that's USDA regulations or what. I think but it kind of is. But yes, if you have a huge factory, that means you have like 10,000 chickens in one factory and one of those birds tests positive for bird flu, all 10,000 of those chickens have to go. So the question is, will we be keeping an eye on our backyard birds for the same? Yes,
we will. Polish chickens. Yes.
Well, I won't have Polish chickens, but maybe, you know what? Maybe I will get one because I like them so much. Right. But in the county we live in, even if you have just backyard birds for your own usage, you have to register your flock with the county or the State Department of Agriculture. I think it's actually a Maryland law, not a county law. And then if you see symptoms of bird flu, you have to let them know. But because we're not going to be selling any eggs, we just have to register the flock, and that is monitored at the state level. So
what does bird flu look like in a chicken? Do they get sniffly and need like chicken soup? That would be weird if they drank chicken soup.
Right. Yeah. You see them under blankets and they're watching TV and they're not moving around as much. Yeah. Price is Right. I don't know. Actually, that's a good question. I'll have to learn how to spot the signs, but generally, I know that when chickens are not healthy, it's generally quickly pretty obvious that something's wrong.
Oh,
So
this makes me sad.
it does.
But it's a sad situation. But yeah, it's a good question from Robert. And then lastly, this is still reading Robert's follow-up. Lastly, with all the talk about tariffs, and he writes in parentheses, don't get me started on that topic as a Canadian, are you and your sources seeing an uptick in scams related to tariffs and how to get around them? There are a lot of groups and sites now that show Canadian alternatives for U.S. goods and services. I see mountains of scams and bad actors rubbing their hands with glee. That is a great question. I've been wondering the same thing. Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
I actually have I haven't validated this, but I had a discussion this morning with one of my coworkers that kind of ties the egg story and the tariff story together. Apparently, people are smuggling eggs in from Mexico. And I have to find the story about this because now there are egg mules and egg traffickers at the southern border. And I got to look into this a little bit more. I just haven't had time to look into it, but it does. Yes, I have heard of something.
You have heard of it already. Yeah, I have been wondering the same thing, Robert. Honestly, I'm in New England, so we're quite close to the Canadian border. We're just a few hours away. So I would imagine our economy is going to get pretty slammed by these tariffs because it used to be that we could cross the border really easily. I haven't seen anything specifically, but I'm keeping my antenna up, and I'm sure we're going to be seeing things and covering them on the show. So, Robert, you're ahead of it. Yeah, we'll definitely be seeing it. No question there.
Yep.
Thanks for the follow-up. Yep, that's good. Good follow-up. All right. So we'll dive into our story. So I'm going first today, ladies first, I guess.
Yep.
And
should have done that last week, I guess.
Well, it's okay. This week I'm borrowing a story from my friend Graham Cluley, who I just saw in Florida 2 weeks ago after not seeing him in person for 15 years. That was quite a thing. And he has this great story coming out of the UK from the Kent Police Department that is about how more than at least 9 people in the UK have lost a combination of £1 million to a crypto scheme. And I am normally on team crypto means cryptography, but today it's going to mean cryptocurrency. I'm sorry.
Right. That's something that irritates cryptographers is when people start saying crypto meaning cryptocurrency.
I know. I remember there was a pin. Cryptography. Yes. I remember when that was what it meant, and now it's confusing. So I'm going to have to define when I say crypto. Today I'm talking about cryptocurrency. I'm sorry, cryptographers. So this specific scam that the Kent police are covering it's not complicated, but it's just interesting that it's working. The scammers found data on the internet, pick a source, that was leaked, and they contacted victims under the guise of being the police following up on an Action Fraud report investigation. So Action Fraud being a UK-based organization that does follow up on fraud that is reported and trying to sort of remediate that. And then these fake police tell the victims that you should expect a call soon from your crypto wallet. And
now, right there, I'm like, if my crypto wallet calls me, I have questions.
Yeah, major
what does
questions.
That mean that, like a crypto wallet is just a piece of software or hardware that holds your keys for accessing the blockchain and signing transactions on the blockchain. That's what a crypto wallet does.
Yeah, a very, very clumsy, and this is an admittedly extremely clumsy metaphor. Comparison is saying expect a call from your email. It just to me is like, I don't,
right.
That would, you wouldn't be getting a call from them, but soon after this first fake call from the so-called police, you get a fake call from the so-called crypto host that then says it needs to verify your seed phrase for your crypto wallet. And this is where I stop and go, that is a terrible idea. Never, ever give anyone your seed phrase ever. Joe, please explain why a seed phrase is so important and why it's not the same as a password.
We've had this discussion before, but I don't know that you were there. So it's actually, this is a misnomer but everybody knows what you mean when you say seed phrase, but it's actually a recovery phrase. A seed in cryptography is some random number, hopefully truly random number, maybe from the environment, the physical environment, that you can use to begin the selection of other random things in some kind of crypto primitive that generates something like, for example, a private key. So that's not what this is. What this is the recovery phrase, which is a bunch of words that a crypto wallet will show you that essentially those words map to bits of your private key. And they're long. And they
12
they
to
look
24
like,
usually, something like that.
Right.
12 to 24 words. Yep.
Yep. And each one of those words might map to, say, maybe, I don't know, maybe 12 bits of your key. So it's a way for a human to write down their key without having to worry about whether or not they're writing down all the right hexadecimal characters.
Right.
Or in the case of an address, a base 56 encoded address. I'm pulling that off the top of my head, but a Bitcoin address is encoded with something, I think it's called base 56. It's not base 64 because they remove all the redundant letters. Like there's, they don't use O and 0 and they don't use 1 and L.
To remove the possibility of them getting confused, right?
Correct. Yep. Because if you send cryptocurrency to the incorrect address, it's gone forever.
Gonzo. Yep.
Because nobody will ever be able to generate the private key that can sign transactions coming out of that address.
Right.
And I'm butchering that, I know, but it's essentially, it's called burning when you do that. So yeah, don't give up either your seed phrase or your recovery phrase. It's actually a recovery phrase because that is your private key. That is essentially your private key. It maps directly to your private key.
Yeah, and that's exactly, sadly, what happens is the scammers then completely rebuild the crypto wallet and they just make off with the funds and it's just gone.
Correct.
So yeah,
all they have to do is open a crypto wallet, and they say, "Oh, I'm going to recover my wallet. Here's my recovery phrase," and then they have access to all your private keys. That's it.
There's no speed bump there. It's just if you have the seed phrase, that's it.
Yep.
So yeah, if anyone's expecting, them to be prompted with some other thing that would stop them, no, that is it. So it is, you never, ever, ever give away that seed phrase. Don't tattoo it on your arm or anything like that. Like you don't want anyone to ever, ever have that. So the Kent Police Detective Sergeant Daryl Paulson, there's a quote from him at the end of the story that says, "I urge anyone contacted by someone claiming to be from a crypto host or from the police not to give out any personal details. Scammers are becoming increasingly more calculating in their methods to defraud their victims into losing a substantial amount of money and will often, as we've talked about on this show, create urgency in the situation, such as telling them that they need to act now to stop their funds from being stolen." I imagine that is a big part of the scam that's happening over the phone on this one. Don't be embarrassed about reporting a scam, as it only takes a second to be distracted and fall victim. Very important note there. So yeah, the fact that £1 million have already been lost to this scheme, folks who've fallen for this, you're not alone. Again, it's the bad guys who are bad here, not you. For folks who are new to crypto, and I imagine there's going to be a lot more folks who are new to crypto sort of coming around, that seed phrase really, really is very, very secret to you, and never give it out to anyone for any reason at all ever.
Right.
Okay.
So a couple things. Number one, understand the difference between a crypto wallet and a crypto exchange. A crypto wallet is something that you're going to run. A crypto exchange is where you can also keep your cryptocurrency, but that is like a company, and they have the wallet. They'll give you an address that you will then you can receive cryptocurrency at the address, but you'll never be in control of those private keys. So an exchange might be safer from this, but what I would think is going to happen is that somebody who's scamming somebody from an exchange will say, "Okay, here's what you need to do. You need to go out and get a wallet. Okay. And then you need to transfer your money from the exchange to the wallet. Okay. Now give me the wallet's seed phrase or recovery phrase." And then they get access to your cryptocurrency.
Yeah,
so it's really not that big of a speed bump, but understand the use case for each of these. Don't let anybody log into your exchange. Don't give out the recovery phrase for your wallet. And, make sure that you do your due diligence. And like I always say, if you're going to invest in cryptocurrency, make sure that you can afford to take that money out into the street, pour gasoline on it, and light it on fire.
That's
if you can't afford to do that, don't buy cryptocurrency.
Yeah, I also want to say, in my brief dabble in crypto a couple of years ago, it is really, I'm sure it's changed a bit. It's still not that user friendly. It's not as intuitive as you might think if you're coming in from the outside. A lot of these concepts don't necessarily have a great analog to stuff that we're more familiar with, unless you're like really in this world. So part of me feels like that's a little bit by design, but it is genuinely worth taking the time, slowing down, and really getting to understand what you're doing before diving in head first, to make sure you understand like what the keys to the kingdom are here, especially because it's not always obvious. Seed phrase kind of seems like, okay, one of those backup keys that you get when I don't know, like when you create a new account somewhere and they're like, you should save this somewhere, and almost no one ever does.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Print this out and save it. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, it's not like that. The seed phrase is not like that. So, yeah. All right. Well, thanks for your help in explaining that one, Joe. I appreciate that one a lot because crypto, again, not a world I understand nearly as well as I'd like. But anyway, so what is your story, Joe?
Actually, I have two because one of them is kind of short, and it's Dave's not here, so
why not? Let's go.
And I said that without making a Cheech and Chong reference, so I'm very proud of myself.
Wow, well done.
So, first one comes from Hank Sanders at the New York Times, and he is talking about a call center in Montreal, Canada, that was targeting older Americans claiming to be grandchildren in need of bail money. This is a common grandparent scam, and U.S. federal prosecutors have been working with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and they have announced, the U.S. Attorney's Office in Vermont has announced that 25 Canadian nationals have been charged with conspiring to defraud Americans in 45 states. And 23 of these people have been arrested. And the amount of money that has been lost is staggering. It is $21 million over 3 years.
Wow.
So, I hope that some justice is served here. I don't know what happens to the $21 million. I don't know if that money is still around, if there's anything that can be recovered. The people who ran this organization, who are being charged with managing and then, on top of that, laundering the money, there are 4 people there looking at 40 years, and other people who were involved in this are looking at 20 years. So, of course, everyone's innocent until proven guilty. These are alleged crimes. They have to be proven guilty in a court of law. But I don't know what happened to the 21 million, but it would be nice if we get some of that back, but I don't know that we will.
Yeah, these grandparent scams are preys on everyone's worst fears. It's what makes them so evil. But man, that is a lot of money. Gosh, 21 million.
Yeah. Speaking of worst fears, Taylor Swift. That's one of my worst fears. Having to go to a Taylor Swift concert.
Wow, Joe.
I'm going to raise the ire of a lot of people.
She
does. And she started as a country music singer.
That's right. I'm kind of surprised. All right. Yeah, all right.
So, I'm not a really big fan of country music. Although I do like the hats. I'm
learning more about you every day, Joe.
The district attorney for Queens, who is Melinda Katz, has announced the arrest of 2 people. One is named Tyrone Rose from Kingston, Jamaica, and the other one is Shamara Simmons from Jamaica and Queens, New York. They have been arrested and charged with grand larceny in the 2nd degree, computer tampering in the 1st degree, conspiracy in the 4th degree, and computer tampering in the 4th degree. So, according to these charges, these defendants used the popularity of Taylor Swift's concert series, the Era Tour, Eras Tour. I'm going to say that.
Not error, and in New England accent, Era Tour.
Right. It's Eras, ERAS.
Yes.
And they are accused of using the article says, this is from, by the way, I should say, this is from People Magazine, from Kimberly Speakman. The article says that they allegedly exploited a loophole in an offshore ticket vendor to steal tickets to these concerts and then sold these seats for $600,000. Now, here's the interesting part. They only stole like less than 1,000 tickets, 993 tickets that they stole. And this was between June of 2022 and July of 2023. So they were in this for a year. There are other conspirators.
I was going to say, the fact they got that many at all is actually kind of impressive, given how fast they sold out. But all right, yeah.
So it says they took advantage of a loophole, but I don't think that's right. Because what happens here is there was another accomplice that's still not been apprehended in Jamaica that had access to StubHub's computer system.
Oh.
And it says here that they were able to find a back door into a secure area of the network where the already sold tickets were given a URL and queued to be emailed to the purchaser for download. So when you go online and you buy a concert ticket, this system would generate a URL where you would download the tickets, and then it would email you the URL. So people had paid for these tickets, and this guy went in there and just put a new email address into the into the field so that the email would not go to the person that bought the tickets, but go to Miss Simmons in Queens.
Huh. Stealing.
And yes, stealing.
Stealing. Yep.
Yeah, it's just, and it's, I don't even know if it's hacking. If you have access to this and you can see if it's an insider job is what it looks like to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say it doesn't take a lot of technical knowledge. You just literally are just stealing from people at that point.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
I'll take this. Yeah.
There's not really a lot of social engineering here, but there is what happens next, really? I mean, if you're someone who bought one of these tickets and you never get the email, what do you do? Do you call your credit card company and go, I paid $600 for this ticket, or I paid $200 for this ticket. I never got my ticket. I'm not paying for the ticket. And the credit card company goes, okay. And maybe that's long enough for somebody else to sell a ticket and the person who bought the ticket to go to the Taylor Swift concert. But
honestly, I would think it'd be the opposite. It's I remember the frenzied media coverage of the ticket feeding frenzy there of people, no amount is too high for my sweet girl to see Tay-Tay in concert. And, you think you've paid for it and where's the ticket gone? I'll pay anything. Right. Please get that ticket. But they're all sold out. So I would think you're going to have a lot of panicked fans and parents, or parents who are fans.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know. I would not. I mean, there's a quote in here from Taylor Swift's concert company, Taylor Swift Touring, and they told the New York Times that over 10 million people attended the Eras tour and it sold over $2 billion in tickets. So that's like an average price of $200 a ticket.
Jeez.
So, I mean, when I was a kid, I would go to a lot of concerts, right? So I get going to a concert. I would enjoy seeing these people perform, but I have never in my life spent $200 on a concert ticket.
I mean, I have, but tickets are for concerts are extraordinarily expensive nowadays just because of all the fees that you get tacked on through Ticketmaster and the like.
Right. Yeah.
If you see anyone that's fairly big act nowadays, I mean, you're looking at that per person. Which is why I haven't taken my kid to a concert because I'm not willing to pay that. Yeah. I mean, I think I paid $40 to see Raffi in concert.
Raffi? You had to sit through a Raffi concert?
I mean, that was my life at that time, so it really wasn't that bad.
I think I would rather go to a Taylor Swift concert.
Well, remember what it's like to have a 3-year-old. Just remember.
Yeah.
It was a big deal at the time. But yeah, it was $40 and he was great. For the record, Raffi was wonderful. So
was he? I'm sure.
Yeah, he was great. My kid loved it. But Tay-Tay, yeah, I'm not paying $600. I was seeing tickets around here for over $1,000. I had no inclination to go, but yeah, it's a lot of money. Is your daughter
a Taylor Swift fan?
She is.
Okay.
She is because it's just the age that she's at. But yeah, I keep blowing her mind. Yeah, I blow her mind.
I will say nobody should be surprised that I would not like to go to a Taylor Swift concert because I
you
am
didn't
not
exactly blow my hair back with that revelation. Yeah, no. It's like, yeah, really? Oh, never would have guessed, Joe.
Right.
But the scams persist.
Yes.
Oh, well, yes. Well, it's a great story, honestly, when big acts like Taylor Swift or Beyonce or name a group go on tour. I mean, you see scams like this happen. So I know it's a cat and mouse games with the ticketing providers, but sometimes I think they're part of the problem. Anyway.
Yes, I will agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
As is the case here, they did not have a well-designed system on the back end.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And let
what
somebody,
are they doing with all those fees?
An inside job
Yeah.
Somebody with being an insider, get access and redivert tickets.
Well, they're only human after all. Anyway, so before we get to our next story, let's take a quick break to hear a message from our sponsor.
So let's return to our sponsor, ThreatLocker. ThreatLocker is a zero-trust endpoint protection platform that strengthens your infrastructure from the ground up. Where traditional cybersecurity tools require you to create a list of things you don't want to run, ThreatLocker enables you to easily curate an allow list of everything you need in your environment and network, and block everything else by default. With ThreatLocker allow listing and ring fencing, you gain a more secure approach to blocking exploits of known and unknown vulnerabilities. ThreatLocker provides zero-trust control at the kernel level that enables you to allow everything you need and block everything else, including ransomware. The ThreatLocker Zero Trust Endpoint Protection Platform deploys in a learning mode that analyzes the operations of your company using machine learning to assist you in developing your allow list for approved applications, what they can do on the endpoint, what can interact with your data, and even east and west network traffic. We thank ThreatLocker for sponsoring our show.
All right, we're back, and now it's time for the catch of the day. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, we have N2K's own Maayan Plout joining us. Hi, Maayan.
Hi.
Hi. All right, Maayan, why don't you introduce yourself for our listeners?
Absolutely. I'm Maayan. I'm the Director of Enterprise Content Strategy here at N2K. I think about how our audio and video and everything else reaches the audiences that it reaches and make sure that it's as awesome as it can be.
Awesome. Thank you, Maayan. And you do an amazing job of that, by the way. So thank you. And the other thing that our audience should know about you is why we brought you in for the catch of the day today. Specifically, we're going to be talking about what?
We are talking about craft scams. And if we were all sitting in a room together, you guys would see that I'm wearing at least 4 hand-knit objects right now. And that is actually part of the reason that I'm here today, is just talking about how things get made by hand and what it means for people to need materials in order for them to make things by hand.
Yes. Maayan's not overselling it at all. Honestly, she is an incredible crafter. And if you are in the United States, you've probably heard about what's going on with Joann's, aka Joann's Fabrics. Joann's Fabrics?
I think it's plural, actually. Joann. It's Joann.
Joann's is...
Whoa.
Joann.
Joann Fabrics, but it's just called Joann's.
Joann's. All right. So they're, spoiler alert for everybody, they're going completely out of business. So that is kind of making a bit of a mess. Maayan, can you tell us a bit about what's going on with this?
Absolutely. So Joann, the company itself filed for bankruptcy a couple of years ago, and they started closing, I would say, over half of their stores starting last year. And as of a couple of weeks ago, they're just fully liquidating. The store is going to be no more. And at the moment, they're selling out of all of their stock of fabric and sewing supplies at every single location.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would imagine scams. Scams galore.
Definitely scams. And I will say, as someone who doesn't sew or quilt, I'm really intrigued by this one because I see a lot of parallels with how this one operates with other people who do any sort of handcraft, because in order to do handcraft, you need physical materials, like in my case, yarn and needles, or if you're sewing, fabric and thread and sewing machines. And those things have to come from somewhere. And in particular, like, we can buy a lot of things online, but you usually want to like feel or see things in person, especially if you're doing things with color. Like, it's hard to sometimes tell those things online. So having a physical location, like going to a yarn store or a fabric store, can really help you figure out like, oh, this color goes with this color, or I'd like to use it feels like this, so I'd like to use it with this other thing. And that's actually how this even came to me. I'm a part, like, a lot of handcrafters like are in crafting communities with each other. So I'm in a knitting group that's also like a knitting / crocheting / spinning group. So we just like get together regularly and work on things together. But we inevitably end up talking about like, ooh, that yarn is really pretty. Where did you get it? Like, how do you think about this color and this color, or this fiber and this fiber? So I learned about this because many crafters are multi-craftual. Like, they will do a number of different handcrafts in a single category. So there are some people who really like to sew in my particular craft group, which got us on the topic of Joann's going out of business and the kinds of scams that they were seeing online that touched this as well.
Oh, yeah. So tell us about this, because Joann's has had, I mean, they're still going out of business right now, but 800 locations in the U.S., if I remember that number, which is a lot. I mean, it would be basically every state had numbers of locations.
Yep.
So these were plentiful. So right now, I think as we're recording this, they're in the process of liquidating, but it seems to be a mess. So what are the scams that people are encountering?
Yeah. So I think the root of what's happening here, I think there's two parts, right? Like, one part is there are a lot of stores, physical stores that people are going to, but folks who are not necessarily like immediately able to go to a store like in their neighborhood or in their city are considering like, do I drive several hours to a store in order to like get one of the deals related to one of these like liquidation sales? So they're going online and finding that the website for Joann's isn't really up to date because they're just dealing with stock leaving so quickly because there's sales happening everywhere. So that's piece one. Like, the official website for Joann's isn't operating the way that it should for people to be able to do online purchasing.
So don't trust the website. That's a good one. Yep.
It's a good one, but like that one's like, don't trust the official website, but also don't trust the unofficial websites, which is the second half of this and where it came up in my craft group as well. So it turns out that people are starting to see social media advertisements saying that there are even deeper discounts on the fabrics that are going out. Like, basically everything that they sell is going out of business. Like, this is just not going to exist anymore. So from what I can tell, I think the discounts in stores are somewhere between like 20, 30, 40% off. But people started seeing advertisements on social media for 70, 80, 90% off. And people are like, ooh, that's a really good deal. And also,
a great deal.
It's a great deal. And if you also think about it, like, that's such a good deal that you should maybe be a little bit skeptical. But because people also couldn't get stuff on the official Joann's website, they're probably also starting to look at like other places they could get it. So the fake sites that are popping up online look like they have all sorts of things, like things that you would have seen at Joann's in its heyday with like wide ranges of fabrics and like colors and everything. And it looks like the site, right? Like, you should trust it because it looks like the site. Turns out it's not the site. So the steps that people were going through, like, they'd put a lot of things in their cart and they'd go to check out and they'd put in their credit card information, and they'd finish the order, and then they would never actually get anything because it wasn't a real site and it wasn't a real order. Now they just have your credit card information.
Yep. Yeah, and those discounts are great, and especially for inventory that will never expire. I mean, fabric or notions, you can just have it sit in your closet for decades.
Yeah, and
many of us. This is
Yes.
pain that you know.
Yeah, I feel this. My wife is an avid crafter. My daughter and wife both do crochet, and my wife is actually kind of she's a very good quilter. With a reputation around the area. So yeah, there's
a good one, I hope.
Yes, absolutely. And there is plenty of stock laying around our house.
Hey, we in the biz call it a stash.
Stash.
The
Stash.
stash.
Yep.
The stash is everything because it means that you can shop from the things that you have in your home, or you can just add to your stash as a beautiful collection of things that you have around.
Yes.
And I think that's also part of what's like, there's sort of two things happening here, right? Like, part of the reason this came up in my craft group is like, we as crafters have stashes of things that we love that we also like to use. And especially when we know something isn't going to exist anymore, we're probably going to start stocking up on the things that we know that we're not sure where we're ever going to be able to get them again. So there's
the urgency. Yes,
yeah,
the urgency.
there's urgency around it. And at the same time, like, you know, Joann's as a very, very large like organization with a lot of different products, like they're one of the only ones that can do this. So if you're looking for like what I would call like the pantry staples of the crafting world, like, you're going to get them at Joann's because they have the widest range of colors, widest range of things, like, and at a good price point because you can only really do that kind of thing at volume.
Yep.
So when we start to look at like, if you can't get it from the official site or you can't get into a store and you're being targeted on social media, maybe, I don't know, this seems like pretty good. What if I just do this? I know that there's like a feeling generally that like, oh no, it's going to run out. Like, we don't know when it's going to run out. I should also like hop on this opportunity immediately because I don't know when it's going to happen. to me.
And it's chaos in real life also. I've been hearing stories of people going in person and what they're hearing from flyers or emails does not match with actually what their experience is when they go into the store. So it's very hard to get a sense of what's actually, like coupons aren't being honored or gift cards aren't being honored anymore, but some sources say that they are. So it's just, there's a lot of confusion. I haven't been to one because I'm too sad to go in. But actually now I'm really sad thinking about it. But yeah.
Well, you know what would make you sadder is if you ended up on one of these sites that was also going to steal your credit card at the same time, which, man, thank goodness that isn't what happened to you.
Well said, Maayan. Thank you. So I guess it's a PSA for our listeners that there is a lot of confusion and chaos going around. Joann's going out of business it's a US-based store. So folks outside of the United States, you don't need to worry about this unless you were trying to buy stuff online from Joann's, in which case, don't. But for folks in the U.S. who are trying to build up your stash long-term or know someone who might be, don't fall for the scams that are promising extremely deep discounts that don't exist.
If you go to the Joann's website right now, it says, as of this recording, it says, due to high demand, we can no longer fulfill online orders. Please see your local store for all your crafting needs. So
there you go.
If you see an ad for an online order from Joann's, it's not real.
Yeah.
Well, here's an extra fun one. So, Maria, I'm also really glad that you mentioned that this is a US-based company, and that's where where this would be happening. One of the sites that the Better Business Bureau scam tracker noted was doing scammy things was Joann-us.com. So it feels like it could be real and official if it's a US-based store, so I'm going to go to if you don't think about the fact that maybe there's not stores in other countries, or maybe this is like the official US site, and add in what Joe just said, we don't, if their website isn't doing it and you're trying to find a different place to order, then yeah, it's easier to shop from your home than it is to physically go into a store.
Yep.
Scam opportunity.
Yeah, we have a link to the Better Business Bureau's story about the Joann's going out of business scams for our listeners to take a look at. But Maayan, thank you for walking us through this scam. This one's, as you can tell, near and dear to my heart. Joe, I imagine your wife being an expert quilter, she probably has her favorite stores, but I imagine she also dropped in at Joann's now and then for notions and the like. So
she would buy her Kona fabric there, her white Kona, because they always had it and it was well priced. And as a quilter,
Kona, nicely done.
I know a lot.
You do.
I absorb a lot of the information.
You're not just chickens. It's honestly.
No, it's not just chickens.
Well, thank you so much for joining us for the catch of the day today, Maayan. I appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you so much. And watch out there.
I tease my wife about all the extra stock she has laying around the house. But at the same time, if you come down to my lab, there's extra stuff laying around. For example, this week, I just purchased 12 remote control transmitters and receivers because someone at my office was selling them for $2 a piece, and I bought them.
Listen, we all have our hobbies, right? The stuff with all these hobbies is a lot of times you want to take advantage of when there's sales for things that don't expire. It's not like buying fruit, where it's going to go moldy instantly. This is stuff that will last. So I understand. I know a lot of people these things will affect. So I just hopefully people will hear Maayan's warning here and be careful. So.
And of course, we want to thank this week's sponsor, ThreatLocker. Go to threatlocker.com/HH and check out their Zero Trust Endpoint Protection Platform. That's the words threat and locker with no space.com/HH, where you can request a demo and neutralize the threat of malware running on your devices.
And that is Hacking Humans, brought to you by N2K Cyberwire. We'd love to know what you think of this podcast. Your feedback ensures we deliver the insights that keep you a step ahead in the rapidly changing world of cybersecurity. If you like the show, please share a rating and review in your podcast app. Also, please fill out the survey in the show notes or send an email to hackinghumans@n2k.com. We're privileged that N2K Cyberwire is part of the daily routine of the most influential leaders and operators in the public and private sector, from the Fortune 500 to many of the world's preeminent intelligence and law enforcement agencies. N2K makes it easy for companies to optimize your biggest investment, your people. We make you smarter about your teams while making your teams smarter. Learn how at n2k.com. This episode is produced by Liz Stokes. Our executive producer is Jennifer Ivan. We're mixed by Elliot Peltzman and Trey Hester. Peter Kilby is our publisher. And I'm Maria Varmazis.
And I'm Joe Kerrigan.
Thanks for listening. And Dave will be back next week.